Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon. I am here with Kiki Sparkles.
Hello.
And we're gonna, believe it or not, we're gonna talk about the Acolyte again, Star Wars, the Acolyte, and we've got a little more information now. Disney is admitting that it was canceled because it just cost too damn much.
Well, compared to the return. The return investment wasn't there. Shocker.
It's how business works, right? We keep trying to explain to people, like, it doesn't matter how good you think something is. If they spend a lot of money on it and not a lot of people watch it and they don't make their money back, let alone a profit, guess what? It gets canceled. That's how it works.
They're saying, the co-chair, Alan Bergman, saying it got canceled because it cost too much and no one watched it. Basically what he's saying. It wasn't the toxic people, review bombed it and all this other crap that the media keeps running with. He's flat out saying it cost too much and it didn't and while it had some viewership, it didn't have enough to justify another season.
Yeah, so
put that in your pipe and stick your pipe up your butt. Lit, preferably.
Whoa. That actually could light your ass on fire.
Well, go ahead.
So like my uncle, when he'd get drunk, he'd light his farts. And
my dad's been in the military, and so someone did that, and it backed up on him, and he burnt his butt really bad. My dad didn't, the guy who was doing it.
Okay. It's like, so my dad caught on fire when a guy lit a fart.
Well, somebody can tell that story if that was their dad, but not me.
Anyway, let's talk about the Acolyte. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. Guys, go out to clownfishminus.com.
I'll go to it. Hold on.
There you go. Clownfishminus.com. Join the club. Buy our stuff and things. And
locals.
Yeah, and locals. Clownfishtv.locals.com. Let's talk about ass. Let's talk about the Acolyte, the ass end of Star Wars.
That's pretty much it. See, there's like a butthole right here.
There it is.
The butthole's right there in the middle of the name. A couple buttholes are in the cast too, but that's a whole other story. So yeah, they keep blaming on a toxic fandom. Like there are, toxic fans. Google even says now it was targeted by toxic fans who review bombed the show and harassed the cast and crew. No, that is not what happened. Yes, people did review bomb the show. Yes, some people, very small minority of people might have said something to the cast and crew, but the majority of it, people just didn't watch it.
Yeah,
and there was more people that didn't watch the show than did. And I'm going to argue, and I'm still going to make this argument. The engagement is what Disney goes by. That's the viewership of the show and how much people talk about it. It wasn't there. All right. Engagement would include those who didn't like it and talked about it negatively.
Yes.
That would also include, because they don't care, positive or negative is still considered engagement, it's still considered a view. And even with all your haters watching it, it still wasn't enough to give the show a second season. And so that tells me that not enough people in general cared about the show overall.
Yeah.
It's not about toxic people, no matter how much you tell Google it is. They attacked Amanda Stenberg. Well, Amanda Stenberg attacked fans too, which wasn't smart. You're not mentioning that. Vitriol, bigotry, bullshit. This is all Google being, trained by smear campaigns in the pop culture media. And
Reddit.
now people in charge say, not true.
Reddit. Google is being trained by Reddit. And Google AI is, you really got to watch it. This is what's so wild about that. Just kind of a side tangent is Google is relying more on AI to give definitive answers to people, but most of the answers are coming from Reddit, which is clearly biased and often incorrect.
But you have to understand, too, not liking is considered bigotry, prejudice, all this stuff. Because, it's not because you don't like it because it's not good. It's because you don't like it because of misogyny, sexism, racism, or some other ridiculous thing. And maybe, people don't like it because it sucked.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it is. And according to people at Disney who make the decisions, it's because people didn't watch it because they didn't think it was good or it didn't look good or they thought it sucked.
Or it's just, or just Star Wars in general is such a damaged brand that even when something comes out that's quasi decent, like Andor, and people said Skeleton Crew is pretty good.
Skeleton Crew is better, but the viewership's terrible.
Yeah, the viewership's terrible. Nobody's watching it because they're burnt out on Disney Star Wars. They're like,
they're just tired of it. They want Star Wars, and what they're getting from Disney isn't it. So here's what Bergman, who is one of the co-chairs, now he runs. He does more like the films, and I think she handles more like the shows. But here's what he said. He was asked. This is what he was asked. It feels like it had a bumpier road, meaning the Acolyte, of late compared to Marvel, or I think Star Wars in general. The Acolyte had many strong reviews by the pop culture media, including probably this net outlet, and did well in the ratings its first week out. But you ultimately opted against the second season. Why didn't you move forward? Okay, and then they mentioned the Skeleton Crew. And here's what he said. So as it relates to Acolyte, we were happy with our performance, but it wasn't where it needed to be given the cost structure of that title.
Yep.
Quite frankly, to go and make a season 2.
Yep.
So that's the reason why we didn't do that. And it basically says Skeleton Crew's in process now, so we'll see how it goes. But basically, there's it's between 180 and 230 million dollars is what the reported cost was of the Acolyte. It got some good reviews, and we thought it was okay, but it didn't bring the returns it needed based on the cost.
Yeah, and that's,
he didn't say it was because of sexist, racist, terrible fans.
Because they don't care. The people that make the shows, the people that do the PR, the people that, the activists they have working at these companies, the executives, strictly numbers. They're
again, those who hated it and watched and engaged count the same way
yes.
of those who liked it.
Yes. I'm convinced that some shows get another chance because people are hate watching them.
And even the hate watchers weren't enough to save this one.
No. I watched, I actually dipped in. I watched episode 3 of it, and I'm like, it's definitely is not for me. I think this is a silly show. I have no interest in it, but a lot of people were watching it just to make fun of it.
Right. And those people counted.
It still wasn't enough.
I think it's hilarious because these pop culture outlets are so mad about it. But it's like, even if they're review bombing it, even if they're watching it, even if they're making articles or engaging it in any way, Disney counts that as engagement. So they're actually helping it to get made into another season. That actually is helpful. You're mad about it, but that was actually on to your benefit. And they still didn't do it because nobody watched it. And we talked about this before. Let me find this article. We talked about the data, and this is from Luminate. And this is back, when it was they had 5.5 weeks of data. From my understanding, it hasn't gotten better. And you can see it was significantly behind everything else. And even if it creeped up some, it was not catching up to these shows. It wasn't as good. It wasn't having the audience for these shows. So, of course, they weren't going to do a second season. And Andor was greenlit to begin with. So, they think they were doing 2 seasons from the get-go. So they were going to finish what they already started.
Yeah, people don't understand that. Like, a lot of times, and especially with the animation, right? They will greenlight multiple seasons up front because the amount of time and resources it takes to put a team together to do that, or they'll take an initial episode order and they'll split it into multiple quote unquote seasons. But Netflix's seasons like 5 episodes.
Yeah,
anymore,
and they'll put them up because they have those ones done, and they'll have like a big lapse, like a big gap in between while they're finishing other ones. So like you might get 3 or 4, but there's a big break for a while because they have to finish up the other ones. They don't do them sometimes they do them back to back to back sometimes, but a lot of times they're still working on them, and that's why there's a big gap in between. You know, or they're changing shit or whatever.
Yeah. So
contrary to what some people think.
Yeah, because that's the same with when we were kids. They would have like the 26 episode order. It was usually 13 episodes, 26 episodes, and that was most like primetime shows were like 26 episodes or 65 episodes. That was the magic number for syndication. So for like a lot of the cartoon shows and stuff, they had to hit like that 65 episode, but they would kind of roll them out. And what you see is you'd see like the first batch, then they'd do reruns for a couple weeks, and then the new ones would start rolling out.
But sometimes it was just because of the time frame and they wanted to have a build up for the next part. And sometimes, well, I don't know back then, but now, it would be like a big gap. Sometimes it's because they were finishing them up. It's not a big deal, but they usually greenlight stuff ahead. And I'm pretty sure Andor was greenlit both at the same time. And it had a high budget too, but it had way more episodes. This only had a few episodes, and it just did not do well. I'm sorry. It didn't do well. And the people in charge said so. They said, we were happy with it. Doesn't mean the audience was.
No.
But it wasn't where it needed to be.
Yeah, I think he's trying to be very careful.
He's being diplomatic about it.
He's trying to be.
The audience liked it.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to have a higher up at Disney be like, yeah, we greenlit some pure dog shit, and we know it's dog shit. I'm sure internally, there are people at Disney being like, oh, what the hell is this? What the hell is this?
Even the question, the Acolyte had many strong reviews. It did, both positive and negative, and it said in its first week. Yeah, first week it had double episodes and it did well, and then it declined after that. I think it got a bump with the 3rd episode. People were tuning in to see what the hell was up with it, but it declined. And the thing is, those reviews are mostly these news outlets like Vulture who were like all over it and telling everybody else they were terrible people if they didn't like their thing.
Yeah,
and I'm like, basically, reading between the lines, we thought it was okay because I'm not going to say it sucked. It didn't do well. People didn't watch it. wasn't worth greenlighting for second season because it's too expensive.
Yeah, and that's
Not because people are horrible.
Every one of these decisions, and this is how you can tell, that we have activists that don't have any business experience in the industry. They think that the money is just magically appears.
Yeah, they'll give it to just because they're them.
Just because they're them.
They have to make money.
The money has to come from somewhere. And the way you make money in entertainment is you sell your product to the largest number of people possible, and your product might just be eyeballs. It might be advertising or subscriptions. And if nobody's watching your stuff, then guess what? You don't get a second season.
Well, in contrast, The Mandalorian, the first 2 seasons did really well. The third one I don't think did as well.
No, that was
it was all over the place.
And that was after Book of Boba Fett, and people were like, we're out again.
However, it's done well enough that Disney's willing to make a film about it. They're willing to make a movie about that one. Meanwhile, the Rey films are still on hold. There's all these Rey films. Where are they?
I don't think we're going to
went to another writer. Yeah, we're going to probably cancel like everything else. But the one film they're doing is The Mandalorian, which tells me it still did, even with season 3, enough that they're willing to put their money behind it for a film. And they think that's their best bet to try to bring Star Wars back, as opposed to running with more Rey stuff.
And they're looking at the numbers. They're going to look at The Mandalorian. The first 2 seasons did really, really well. And Baby Yoda merch. So, basically...
Name it's Grogu.
Grogu carried the Star Wars franchise for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
It wasn't Rey. It wasn't even Luke. It was Baby Yoda stuff.
People came back. They were very excited when they brought Luke back and everything else. And then by the third season, where you have, Jack Black and...
Lizzo
showing up. People are like, what?
And this was after the Gina Carano situation, which pissed a lot of people off, just the way they treated her.
I think they're also making it that Bo-Katan's going to be the new Mando type situation. People are like, no.
It's a mantle. We have to pass the mantle, guys.
It's called Mando for a reason.
Right.
That's the only thing that's been greenlit for sure that's coming out from Star Wars as a film is The Mandalorian and Grogu, I think is what it's called. But this show, we heard right from the people in charge who'd make the decisions, it just did not justify the expense because people didn't give a shit. The ones who did were the media. And I'm sorry, contrary to what Reddit has told Google, might have had a couple people doing things, saying things. Majority of people didn't. People just didn't watch in general. And even when you have the people that you complain about who are bigoted and they're prejudiced and all that, counting towards engagement, and it still wasn't enough with them. That just tells me the general public didn't care.
Yeah.
They didn't watch it.
No.
It wasn't for them.
Nope.
They tuned out. The end. I'm sorry. You can take all this stuff and stick it up your butt with that pipe because you're full of it. And the people in charge are saying that, nope, it was because it didn't have an audience to justify the cost.
So there we go, guys. It's coming directly from a higher up at Disney.
It's almost like we said was true, because it is.
Complete and total failure. And it will be forgotten in time. And, I don't even know where Star Wars goes from here. I don't know if I care. I think, to me, Star Wars will always be George Lucas's story.
I said there's 6 movies. Well, couple extra. Maybe we'll count, Rogue One. 6
canonical movies and a couple of good fanfics.
Yeah, and then a lot of good books and stuff that got scrapped. So
we're going to wrap it up.
Yep.
Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. We'll talk later.
Bye.